4 dogs, 2 males, 2 females, 2 of them having issues with each other. 6-year-old rat terrier raised from a puppy. The other's a rescue pit bull that they received from an abusive situation, right? So this is I'm just going to take this paragraph at a time here, right? Okay. So what that says to me right off the rip is the rat terrier is your baby. You raised it since it was a puppy. You've had it for 6 years old. It's a small dog, right? You have this association of like, this is the one I raised from birth, right? It's the golden child, whatever, right? Right? Like that's, and I'm reading between the lines here, right? The other one, rescue pit bull, you rescued from an abusive situation, right? That tells me right off the rip that this dog probably has a lot of issues that, because nobody says the dog's from an abusive situation unless they're justifying the dog's problematic behaviors.
Yeah.
Right? That one probably has a lot of behavioral issues that you use the rescuing from an abusive situation as an excuse for those poor behavioral issues. Right?
Yeah.
So that's how we dissect this first thing, right? So you have 2 dogs that are getting in fights with each other. You have a rat terrier and you have a pit bull. The rest of that is all irrelevant unless we're using it to justify something. Next one. They have had small fights in the past. You've reached out to other trainers to solve the issue, but the end result is always something randomly triggers the pit bull and the fighting starts again, right? So that tells me nothing about the training that you've done so far.
Yeah.
Right? And given the fact that the fights that you broke down here, which we'll talk about in a second, are actually very predictable things, and actually I could look at it and be like, well, that's obvious why that happened. That tells me that one of 2 things. One, the trainers you worked with, you probably didn't work with that long, and you probably didn't try that much training with the dogs, because if you did, the trainer would be able to tell you exactly what I'm saying. Or 2, you worked with completely incompetent trainers that weren't able to look at this situation and be like, well, that's obvious why that happened. Right? So your training you've tried so far is probably not very good.
Yeah.
Next one. Most recent fight, we were all in the sectional watching TV. The mailman comes to the door and puts a package on the porch. The dog starts barking out the window. Rat terrier jumps into your lap. Pit bull attacks rat terrier. I separate them. A few days later, the females get into again while stepping out of the shower into the hallway. Okay, so this is a case in point example of redirected aggression, right? So this is what I mean about when I go to people's houses. I could look right away at the situation and tell what the problems are, is because 90% of the time when somebody's at the front door, we lose absolutely all control over the dogs. And on top of that, the dogs are going absolutely bananas, which is a completely unhealthy protective state of mind. They're all acting independently to try to defend their territory. And on top of that, that energy is like a magnet to some dogs, right? Especially you get into some of these pitties and stuff, right? That want to just like, just get over and control that energy. And then you got a little dog, problematic behavior, right?
Yep.
90% of the time when we're dealing with fights are coming from a place of 1 or 2 dogs disciplining, other dogs for something that we should be disciplining them for in the first place, right? So, you just said, obviously, the rat terrier jumped into your lap. Was the rat terrier going crazy and you kind of accidentally like picked it up to scoop it into your lap to try to stop it from misbehaving, and then the pit bull tried to jump on top of the rat terrier and attacked it then at that point? But because the rat terrier is the dog that you raised from puppy and probably have a hard time seeing problems with it and stuff like that, you didn't see it that way. You just saw it as, oh, the rat terrier just jumped into my lap, right? But that dog was probably actually reacting and you were trying to control it because it's a little dog. You could easily scoop it up and take it into your lap.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I mean, right? Like these are all of the ways that I look at these types of situations, right? And then that pit bull would be disciplining the rat terrier for, hey, you're acting completely unstable right now, so I'm going to take my energy and I'm going to toss it onto that, right? So that's a case in point example of like, I would look at that. How do we stop that type of fight from happening? We have to gain complete and utter control around these dogs, around all of these different types of distractions, primarily people at the front door, packages getting dropped off, stuff like that. There's no reason why your dog should be going so crazy that this situation happens.
Yeah.
Right? Additionally, this whole idea of like we're all just like cuddling on the couch together and stuff like that. God, I hear that so much. You wouldn't even imagine. I worked with a household one time, years and years and years and years ago. They had like 6 dogs, right?
Oh my God.
And they called me over to the house to do an assessment because they had a massive fight breakout that resulted in the wife like breaking her arm.
Oh my God.
Like breaking up the fight and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the first thing they told me when I got to the house was every single night we go downstairs into the basement and we all get on they had a huge house, a big sectional couch, right? And all 6 of the dogs and him and his wife and stuff, they'd all have this big cuddle fest on there watching TV together, right? Guys, I know like social media puts all these pictures all the time like out there of like all these dogs snuggling together and doing this and doing that, but that is a goddamn recipe for fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Right? Because once they're all cuddling up on that couch trying to get as close as possible to you because you are ultimately their resources. Yeah. And those dogs may have a stable enough relationship with each other where they could tolerate it for a little bit. But once one of them feels like the other is threatening their resource a little too much or whatever it may be, you are all in such a vulnerable position where it is just going to fizzle up and just fucking explode into this fight, which is exactly what happened with this family, which resulted in these dogs getting absolutely fucked up. The wife literally was in a full arm cast because her arm got broken with one of the dogs redirecting onto her from the fight breaking out.
Yeah.
Like, these are just things when you have multiple dog households, you really just shouldn't do.
Yeah.
You really just should not do it.
I feel that.
So, continuing on here, right? This fight was the tipping point for me. The pit bull has the rat terrier's head in her mouth and will not go. I end up with a broken wrist, staying in the hospital for 2 days from her biting me. Roommate ends up with punctures in the inside of her leg, and now the girls can't stand the sight of each other. Rat terrier ends up with stitches around her throat and face. So this is the thing, right? Like, this was the tipping point one, but there's been many up until this point, right?
Yeah.
The first time you start seeing altercations happen between your dogs, right? And what I mean by that is anything other than the most normal of minor little correction, right? I'm talking any sort of squabbles, any sort of competing over resources, any sort of competing over you, stuff like that. That is the time where you say, this can't ever happen again.
Yeah.
Not when it hits a point where you're in the hospital, your roommate's in the hospital, one of the dogs almost died.
Yeah.
Like, that dog easily could have died right there.
Oh, yeah.
Easily. I'm shocked it didn't, right? It's got to stop there.
Yeah.
It can't stop way in the future, right? And again, if you were working with a good trainer, the trainer would have been able to instruct you on some major changes you could have made right away to put yourself in a position where you were immediately setting the tone and getting these dogs the fuck under control in the house, right?
Yeah.
And again, I promise I'm not like digging on you. I'm just giving you the realities of like, if you want to get past this kind of stuff, this is the only way you can look at it. You have to be able to look at everything you're doing wrong.
Yeah. 100%.
So this next one is really the kicker.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, the pit bull was a rescue and has been a dream of a dog for me. She just does not like my other female. She is not aggressive or even shows any type of annoyance towards my Chihuahua or Blue Heeler, who are both males. So this one is the kicker, because let's fast forward to 2 paragraphs later. I used to think it was a resource guarding issue geared towards my affection to the rat terrier, but now it's unclear. I do not think this dog will do well in another home. She hates men, strangers in general, is sketchy towards small children. She is sensitive to loud noises, bright lights, and anything outside of her normal routine causes her to shut down or show aggression. Additionally, the third incident this summer was earlier this summer when I boarded all 3 of them. They were kept separate because of the girl's behavior in the past, and the pit bull bit one of the employees on the back of their leg after they fed her. Now let's go back. Like I said, the pit bull was a rescue and has been a dream of a dog for me.
A nightmare?
And then let's go all the way to the beginning. The other is my rescue pit bull that I rescued from an abusive situation. What was the first thing I said when I read that? You're really highlighting the abusive situation because you're making excuses for the dog's problematic behaviors elsewhere.
Yep.
So let's look at this, right? If we want to successfully have a multi-dog household, right? We want to own multiple dogs. We want to keep them all safe. We want to make sure we have adequate control over them. And specifically, we want to make sure we never run into inter-dog household aggression issues.
Yeah.
You can't have behavioral issues with your dogs. This is the thing maybe people are going to give me a little shit for, right? But I genuinely believe if you want to keep your dogs safe with each other, you cannot make an excuse for any behavioral issue your dog has that doesn't pertain to them fighting with each other. Because if we say we don't have control over our dog's serious problematic behavioral issues, whether it's aggression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's whatever it may be, towards these things outside of the house, if we're saying we don't have control over that, if for whatever reason it starts turning towards the dogs in the house, you definitely are not going to have control over that.
Yeah.
Right?
No way.
So if I were to work with this client, let's say she said, David, I live 2 blocks away from you and I want you to come help me rehab my dogs over the course of the next 3 months, right? Here's what I would do. I would say, don't have these dogs together right now. I would go into the house. I would immediately get these dogs fitted up with e-collars or some sort of corrective device, and I wouldn't do any obedience training. My first thing I would do is I would absolutely fucking squash any and all behavioral issues that are happening individually with these dogs. They would have no furniture access anymore. They would not be allowed to put their paws on me, the little dog jumping into your lap, right? Assuming it just jumped into your lap and you didn't pick it up and put it in your lap, right? Any reactivity towards anything going on outside of the house would be squashed.
Yeah.
Any and all food aggression would be squashed. All of that stuff would just be gone. It would be gone, and I would just get it the fuck under control. Resort back to our episode we did a couple weeks ago on get it under control, because this applies in these types of situations. We need to get this under control.
Yeah.
Right? Also, quick side note, just saw Zay, the dog we talked about in that again yesterday. That dude is crushing it so fucking hard. It's literally not even funny. I went to go do the follow-up yesterday, and I was like, I usually go in, and my first thing I like to do with like board and train follow-up lessons, I was like, tell me what's been bad, or tell me what needs work. I was like, even if it's like a nitpicky little thing that's like not seemingly a big deal, just tell me anything that we could work on right now. And they're like, there's literally nothing.
Oh, man.
They were like, he's doing so good. Like, there's no problems that we're having right now because we got it the fuck under control. All right, let's bring it back to here.
Let's go.
Right? That is what we would need to do. Right? We would need to go in and we need to stop all this shit. She hates men. Well, guess what? Your dog doesn't have the option to hate men anymore. Right? Strangers in general is sketchy towards small children. First off, children probably shouldn't be coming up and petting your dog, but we need to get this dog bomb-proof neutral around children. Right? I don't know what sensitive to loud noises and bright lights means. You know what I mean? Like, that could be anything. Let's say the dog has noise reactivity from the standpoint of like if some loud noise goes on outside, they get really defensive and stuff like that. Can't fucking happen anymore. Not allowed. Sensitivity to bright lights. I don't know. That could be like how dogs get light obsessions over like laser pointers and things like that. That is a frantic, neurotic behavior of trying to catch, grab, and kill, like those lights that are going on. Can't fucking happen anymore. It's the same shit when the dog then takes it and redirects it towards another dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all that shit, it just has to stop. It can't happen anymore because that's why the dog is fighting the other dogs.
Yeah.
Right? So this is not unpredictable.
No.
Right? Again, whatever. Yeah, they've had small fights in the past, and I've reached out to other trainers to solve the issue, but the end result is always something randomly triggers the pit bull and the fighting starts again. This is nothing about what she said to me is random.
Yeah.
Nothing. Right? Your pit bull has serious issues that are very obvious.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is those serious issues are just getting redirected onto the other dog because we're making excuses for them because we think the dog was abused, even though the dog probably wasn't actually abused. The dog probably is just genetically a little bit unsound.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's email 1, and that's the breakdown of that one.